Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to tell you a little bit about part of my story that's missing. You guys know all about my student loan debt, and I made a video about my credit card debt. But it occurs to me, based on some of the comments that I get, that a lot of people don't know the other factors in my life. People are like, how did you end up with no savings? How did you end up with a car that doesn't run and another car that you can't really drive because it has a spare and you can't afford to fix the tires right now? And that's difficult to explain. There's a lot of backstory to it. So for that missing part of my background that brought me up to where I am every month in my budget check-ins, I wanted to just put this video up there to kind of fill it in. For those of you who are regular subscribers, you'll find it interesting, and for those of you who I have directed here, basically I'm posting this video so that I can link to this video instead of replying every time with the same answer to the same type of comment. So in order to understand how my finances got where they are, you have to understand that back in college I was a little ahead of the game. Back in 2010, 2 years before I graduated, I started saving money. And I was in college, I was broke, but I was working, and I started putting away $1 per hour worked. And even though it was very little, it gave me a little bit in savings, and I never touched that. I actually wouldn't touch it for 3 years, and we'll get to that. So, oh, and I was also contributing to retirement at that time through my job from college. I had a 401k. So if we start there and we realize that I started saving for retirement, and also building my credit and thinking about refinancing my student loans when I graduated, I was a little ahead of the game in college. And when I graduated college, I got a job right away, pretty much, within a couple months. And I thought that I was doing pretty well. You know, in fact, with my living expenses that I had at that time, I was able to put $500 a month toward debt because my expenses were so low versus what I was now making with my, professional career job. And that was when I was working at Abercrombie. But financially, things started getting tough just a few months down the road. Abercrombie transferred me to a store in Morgantown, West Virginia, which was in the next state and completely on the other side of the next state. So it was a 2 to 3 hour drive, something like that, each way, between where my college apartment was and where this new place was. I went the frugal route, and I lived in a student housing complex with 3 students. Of course, we split everything between us, and one of my roommates was really rich, so he just paid the utilities for everyone. But it was still more expensive, and in fact, it was about double what I was paying for my apartment, my nice apartment back in my college town, versus a room in this other college town. So my quality of life went down a little bit, but it was tolerable. But I still was paying more per month, and that was getting more difficult to do. Not only was I paying more for rent, but for a month, I think it was a month, maybe 2 months, I had to actually have 2 apartments at the same time. And the reason for that was, and this is in my video about how I got fired from Abercrombie, they gave me 2 or 3 days notice that I was moving, being transferred to another store. And in almost the entire time I was in Morgantown, I spent somewhere in the vicinity of $5,000 in moving expenses. The reason it was so much is because I had to immediately move out of my college apartment with really no notice or anything. I still had to put in a 30-day notice, so I had to at least pay for 2 apartments for 30 days. I had to get a storage unit, which was another $100 a month in order to put the stuff in. I had to rent a moving truck. I had to get, pay people in food and beer to help me move. And then it was just this whole ordeal, right? And that was something that back, if you watch that video about Abercrombie, you know, they felt like they had done me a favor by transferring me up to that store. I felt like I did them a favor by transferring there because it was no notice, last minute, not at my request, and it cost me a lot of money to get up there. Well, at that time, even with the moving expenses, even with the ridiculous number of miles I put on my car, driving back and forth every day I had off for the first month that I was in Morgantown to get my old apartment moved out of and cleaned up, and even with the new expense of the storage unit, things were getting tighter, but I wasn't broke. I was still able to contribute to my emergency fund. I was still on time on all my payments for everything. But things started to get rougher farther on. This was now spring, getting into summer 2013. For various reasons, partly because I was trying to go back to school, and partly because I didn't like the people that I worked with in Morgantown, I transferred back to my original store, which meant me moving once again. This time the expenses were not as much, but still some expenses in moving. And also for another 2 months paying for 2 apartments. So when I got back to the Vienna, Parkersburg area, I stayed with friends for a couple months and paid a very small amount in rent. And then in August of 2013, I got my own place again. And once I got moved into my new apartment, I got all the stuff out of the storage unit and I stopped paying that $100 a month in storage. Things started to look up, but then my car blew up. And I didn't know what to do about it. I wasn't able to fix it. I didn't have the money to do that. So I walked. I lived within a couple miles from work, so I walked everywhere. And it was terrible, but I did what had to be done. And at this point, I had just short of $3,000 in that savings account that I'd been saving on since fall 2010. So it's been in there about 3 years. I think it was like just a few dollars short of $3,000. So now I have no car, and in October of 2013, 2 months after I signed the lease on the new apartment, I get fired from Abercrombie. And I'm gonna link up in the cards or down below in the description the video. It's an hour and a half long, but it's definitely a sordid tale if you guys want to hear how I got fired from Abercrombie. And of course, now I'm back to a economically distressed area where there are no jobs. I got lucky that American Eagle hired me on, but I went from $13.42 an hour full-time to $9.25 an hour part-time, and I just wasn't bringing in enough to pay everything. Some months I could get by and pay the rent, and utilities were included with that apartment, but I struggled so much. And I know there was a month or 2 months where I had to transfer out of the emergency fund in order to pay the rent. And I also had to get a car, because keep in mind, I was going to school, and my school was 15 miles away, so I, there for a while, was taking cabs to class twice a week, which was really expensive. And I got a car. I spent $1,900 out of my savings account, out of my emergency fund, and got that car. And then there was, I believe, another month of rent paid out of it, and that pretty much depleted it, and I had no savings. I had a really hard struggle with getting employment, and I finally was able to get it, but it was in Athens, Ohio, meaning that it was an hour away, and I had to use this new car to commute every day. That was extremely, extremely tough. And I mean, just financially, things were horrible for me. And that was from March 2014 until August of 2014 when I finally moved to Athens. And when I did move to Athens, even though my rent went up, just the fact that I was not driving 2-hour commute every day in a car that got like 10 miles to the gallon, it was an old car, then I was in a better situation. And my life did start to improve. This was the part of the time where I started training for a half marathon, and I started eating better and eating at home, and I stopped drinking caffeine, and I started working out, not just training, but like lifting too. Things were better. But I still wasn't making enough to pay all my bills. I was really struggling. And I had 2 part-time jobs, so these part-time jobs did not work out, and I was making $12 an hour, working 31 and a half hours a week. And I just wasn't able to make it on that. And I was still having car problems, and things just weren't good. Well, I did finally find the job in Columbus. Now that's the one, and I'll try to link it up above. That's the one where when I left, I made a video entitled, "I Quit My Job." I thought I'd made it, guys. I moved to the city. I got a really nice apartment. I lived on site at the property I worked at, so it's not like I went out and got the most expensive place I could, but it was nicer than anything I'd ever had before. And with my 20% discount, it seemed pretty good. I mean, financially, it was lower than a quarter of my income. I made the most money I'd ever made, both in my hourly wage and the fact that pretty soon they wanted me to start working overtime, and like a crazy amount of overtime. That's the one where I was saying I worked 70 hours most weeks, 7 days a week. And of course, I was miserable. And then right after moving up there, my car blew up. Another one. This is what happens when you buy very cheap cars. And I was stranded. I don't know why I didn't take Uber around, because it definitely existed. I did use it like maybe twice, but I probably could have gone more places than I did. Maybe it was just being so used to being poor, I was refusing to spend any money. I don't know. But I had all this money coming in for the first and really only time in my life, so I was paying things off like crazy. I had 6 loans that were going into default. I saved 5 out of the 6. They just wouldn't wait long enough. But to save that 6th. But man, I was throwing money. I mean, hundreds of dollars every paycheck on top of the actual payments. I was like, it was legitimately ridiculous how much I was putting toward these loans. And on top of it, I was still paying the college back from when I went back to school in 2013. So this is now summer 2015. And finally I called in and I was like, let's just pay it off lump sum. Paid that off, paid off everything past due, got all but one of the loans current, and my credit card had actually been paid off earlier in that year. So I didn't have any money on my credit card. So after I left Abercrombie, I was part of a class action suit. Well, it wasn't quite class action, but it was a group of people. And I was paid both back wages and damages. So with that, I was able to use it as moving funds to move to Columbus for that job, and also to entirely pay off my credit card. So I was doing the best really I've ever done since before taking out the student loans. But you guys, if you watch that video, you also see how horribly I was treated by the company. Well, maybe I shouldn't say the company, it was my manager. But it just came to a point where I couldn't be there anymore because of how I was being treated. And if I hadn't quit, I'm pretty sure I would have been fired within like a week or 2. So it's not like I could have just chosen to stay. I think I made the right decision. After that though, even though that entire time I've been contributing to my emergency fund, I had to move home. You know, and I've said in previous videos, I did it because I thought that it was the best financial decision, and then it turned out maybe it wasn't. But in retrospect, it's probably not even a decision I had, because without a job, I couldn't have gotten an apartment anywhere else. And because I wasn't working there anymore, they were terminating my lease. They didn't have to do that. They were doing it to be assholes. But I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have a proof of income to go anywhere in order to get another place to live. So at the time, while I thought, well, I have to move home for the first time since I was 15, I, you know, I thought it was the best financial decision. It really wasn't a decision I could make. I had to do that because I didn't have anywhere to go. So, anywhere around this time, and this is probably one of the questions, the old car that I have right now, this is when I bought that. Right before I moved out, obviously if I'm going to be moving back and to a rural area, I need to have a car to get back and forth to somewhere, right? Uber doesn't exist. So my mom found herself in a predicament, and she kind of thought that she could use me to get out of it. Basically what I mean is she inherited a large sum of money. I don't know how much it was, but for some reason it took 5 years to probate my grandmother's estate. And right around this time, around September 2015, Mom got her portion of that. I don't know how much it was, I have no idea, but I know it was a lot. And she consulted a tax professional, and I actually don't think this is right, what they told her, but they told her that if she gave me money, like a large sum of money, that she could write that off as a tax write-off. I don't think it works that way. I think it has to be like a charity or something, but that's what she said they told them, or told her. So I was thankful for the money, and it was like my mom told me directly, this is what you use it for. Like, it's this amount set is to help you get a car. This amount, like she said, a minimum of $1,000 of it goes to loans. And if you guys have seen my videos about my AES loans, you know that I paid $1,200 with that money, and then the next day AES defaulted me, despite their letter saying that everything would be caught up once I paid that. And I should have just kept it, honestly. But my mom had told me to put that $1,000 toward that, and I did. And the remaining $4,000 plus money that I had went to buy this old car that I still have today. And then the other part of this agreement was that I actually had to sign over the title of my car that I had at the time to my mom. So it definitely was like not just her handing me money. It was a tax write-off with some stipulations, plus I had to give her my car. So that happened, and I got this new car. Well, that was all well and good. It was paid in full, no car payment. Awesome. Then when I moved home to Mom's house, anyhow, I don't really consider it home, but when I moved back to that area, things were tough. I knew they would be because there are no jobs there. And I took what I could get, and I worked at Jimmy John's. And you guys know I made a video about that, what it's like to work there. I'll try to post that up above or down below in the description. And while I was there, I was not able to contribute to my emergency fund, but I was able to make enough money to just get by. I could pay my bills, and that was about it. Then later on, I started working on Saturdays in Dublin, up here in Columbus, to get back into the industry. And any money that came from that job went into a moving fund, so that when I got a job in Columbus, I could actually afford to move up here for it. And then when, in March of 2016, and this is where things really, everything before this point is more backstory. March 2016 to the present, so really the last like 2.5 years, is what really is relevant to my current situation. March 2016, I got the job in Columbus. I used the moving fund that I'd saved up to move up here, and I got this apartment that I'm in now. The job also came with that, and I was able to start contributing to my emergency fund again, and I did. a dollar per hour worked. So every 2 weeks, I was putting $80 away, $160 a month. All right. So I started doing that, and I started actually when I first started here. That was when I paid off my first student loan. I still owed, I think I had paid it down to like $400 or something, and I just went ahead and paid that off with the first commission check that I got. And things started to seem like they were going really well. And this lasted from March of 2016 to October of 2016. And that was when my mom's problems started. I don't want to complain about this. I have kept a tally just in case there is ever a chance I could get reimbursed for anything. But when my mom's problems started, her health problems initially, but then that was only for a month or so. Later on, it became legal problems, which we're still dealing with to this day. I have spent an obscene amount of money, whether it be traveling or getting a hotel room to stay when I'm down there, or things that I'm buying for her, or bills that I've paid for her, or things that she needs, like paying her lawyers and just like all of this stuff. I can barely survive on my own, and I've had to find ways to pay for all this. I don't want to say that that's the main reason that I'm in the situation I'm in. It's not. But if it weren't for all those expenses, I would mostly have my shit together, is what I'm saying. Now, fortunately, jumping forward to now, August 2018, for the most part, we're at a resting point where I don't have to pay for a lot of that stuff. That's all I can really say about it right now. But for over 2 years, I was paying for everything for her. And that is really rough. I don't mind doing it, and I know later in life I'm going to be her sole provider. But to be in kind of a bad financial situation anyway, and then to be hit with that's just devastating financially. So, that leaves me with what happened with this past job, the one I was at for almost 2 years. When that stuff came up with Mom in it started in October 2016. It went up until January 2017, at which point I just came to terms with myself that I could no longer contribute to my emergency fund. I started keeping a tally of how many paychecks I did not contribute, and when I'm working at Target now, that I put a dollar per hour worked and then an additional dollar per hour worked into my emergency fund, that additional dollar per hour worked is paying off those old tally marks, so that it'll end up like I never stopped contributing once this is caught back up. But there's 21 paychecks, I think. It's like, I think it was 21 paychecks that I did not contribute $80 from, and I'm paying all that back now. Anyway, that was January 2017, and things just got worse and worse and worse. And as the year went on, I ended up having to pay for more of her legal expenses and more things like that. And things also got harder for me because, as you guys probably remember, I left my job October 2017. I can't really give you guys any details about that, but I wasn't ready to leave. And I had to scramble to find something I could do right away, which is what led me to driving for Uber and Lyft. And now, having driven for Uber and Lyft, and I swear to you guys, I am working on that video. I keep promising you about why I stopped driving. But it did a few things for me. It got me by. I will definitely say that. But it also made things difficult because while I was getting by, I also had a lot of expenses that I had to put up in order to earn that income. with that being said, um, that's why I was trying so hard to just stay off unemployment and just to get a job. And that's why I took the job at the realtor's office. I took the job at the realtor's office just to get back to working. It was, 40 hours a week, $15 an hour, and in the field I wanted to work in. Now, I made a video. It's the one called I'm Going Full Time on YouTube, but half of it's talking about that, half of it's talking about this job. And it talks about why I left there and why I left there so soon. Just to give you guys a little update on that, I have currently open disputes with the Department of Labor and with the Ohio Bureau of Wage and Hour Administration. They're mostly done, and there are some workplace violations that happened there, and I am getting money back from that. I don't know how much. It might be like $100. I'm not sure, but I am getting some of that money recouped. That was the whole reason I quit, because I wasn't getting paid for what I worked. So, I rushed in and took the first job I could get because I just wanted to be back on my feet, and it turned out to be a disaster. And the second way that this ended up being a disaster for me is that I got the car that I have now, the new car. Now, having the car is not a problem, but the fact that I have a $290 a month car payment, that is. When I was working at the realty company, the idea was the $15 an hour at 40 hours a week covered my basic expenses, barely. So if I was going to get a car, I had to drive for Uber and Lyft after work and on weekends. Because if I was going to have a $290 a month car payment, I had to make that back by driving for Uber and Lyft. That was the only way that it was going to work out. And when I had to quit, I wasn't able to make the $600 a week that I made working in the office, plus another $290 on the month. I just wasn't able to make that much money doing it full time. And keep in mind that a big part of why I bought that car was because I was required to. That was part of the agreement of me getting that job, is that I would use the money and I would use the proof of income in order to buy the car. Because transportation, although I never was actually asked to use it, transportation was required for the job. And they gave me, a couple weeks to get my life together and get a paycheck in and then go buy the car. But the decision to buy that car was not entirely my own. It was something that was basically, my employment was sort of based on that, and also it's not like they just said that and never said anything again. They kept asking me about it. And I was very nervous what would happen. I knew, in fact, I would lose my job if I didn't buy the car. And the reason the car sounded like a good idea was because with that full-time income and then doing it on the side, I was going to be able to pay the payments no problem. And also because in the month prior to that, I had used Uber and Lyft to commute to work. And I was spending like $30 a day. It was a huge amount. And compared to that amount, a $290 car payment was nothing. So, with all that being the case, I did still, in the fall of 2017, have some money left in savings. I had a few $100s, if not $1,000 or so. I can't remember how much it was. But a few things came up. Number one, I found out my mom had not been paying the storage unit, which is shared between us. We both have things in there. And Mom assured me that she had been paying it, and then come to find out she hadn't paid it for like 6 months, or actually I think it was 8 months. And so I had 6 months of payments plus late fees, and they were going to auction the thing off. So I transferred all the money out of my savings in order to cover that. And then I don't remember what it was. There was one other thing that same month. It's like I hadn't touched my emergency fund from December 2013 until September 2017. I I don't remember what the other thing is now. I've got it written on the board back here to pay it back eventually. But whatever it was, I had two large items that I had to pay for in the same month. Wouldn't have done that had I known I wasn't going to have the job. Because pretty much took that money out of there. Then the car blew up, the old car, and then not a month later, I lost my job. So I'm just totally screwed. And then, of course, afterwards, I get into Uber and Lyft, which was difficult to make a living, gave me a car payment, and, kind of even devalued the new car by the number of miles I put on it. And then, basically, from, let's say, October of last year until now, it's been almost a year, I've just been doing what I need to do to get by. Whether it be working for Uber and Lyft and just getting by, or getting by with my Lyft recruiting, and now supplementing that with target income, which hasn't been without its problems, but as for now, I'm trying to stay there. Things have just been really tough, and I know that it's going to be me getting back on my feet and getting into like a regular job, whether that be growing the YouTube channel to do it full time, or putting more time into Lyft, which I want to do anyway, but I have kind of a scheduling conflict with the Lyft and the Target thing that I haven't resolved yet. I don't know what I'm going to do long term, but I know that, and it surprises me when I look back at it, that I've been able to hold it together. And when I look at the monthly budget reviews, even though I will tell you right now, August looks terrible. I came out ahead, but it looks bad on paper. But I'm so very slowly making progress every month that I think that if I can increase one of those incomes, either Lyft or YouTube, to make it, more of like a real full-time job, which I think Lyft is the one that's probably going to be the better one to do that with, at least to start, I will be doing a lot better. And I think I might even be able to just do those two types of things, YouTube and Lyft, which are both technically self-employment, that I'll be able to get caught back up. So anyway, guys, I hope that makes some sense. I wanted to kind of fill in the gaps on how things got that way. That's why it wasn't until last month that I started putting money toward an emergency fund again, that I was able to do that. I literally had 89 cents in my emergency fund. I'm working on paying the credit card debt off. Currently not putting any money toward retirement. And I'm trying to figure out the car situation. Although, I have it figured out. It's just I need the money to do it. I'm going to be fixing the new one, obviously. I need to be able to get down to my mom, and she actually specifically needs me to come help her clean out her house right now. And that's something that I'm going to do. I just need to get the car fixed. And then there's the decision about the old car. I tossed that idea back and forth of what to do about it, but I think I have a plan. But I want to get the new one fixed first before I decide anything about the old one. And other than that, it's kind of just, I need money and I need time. And I'm behind on so many things, and I've been in this like weird sporadic employment kind of thing for almost a year now, where things have just been all over the place. But I do feel like now I'm kind of set. One of the criticisms I get is that I job hop, and I don't agree with that. I think that if you look at my resume, that's not what it shows. The last real job I had, I stayed at for almost 2 years. The one before that, a year. So I don't think that I do. But looking at, okay, yeah, I worked at one job for a short time until I figured out they weren't going to pay me, and I quit that. But I think that was the responsible thing to do. But other than that, I've been a little over a month at Target, and I'm gonna, at least through the holiday season, stay there. I may be seasonal. I'm not really sure. Lyft, I've been with May, June, July, August. Okay, so 4 months. Um, I really like it. Okay, I don't want to be like I love it, but I don't dislike it at all. And it has the potential to make a lot of money. I just need to figure out my life so I can dedicate the time to it that it takes to do that. And with those two together, it also gives me the opportunity to grow the YouTube channel. Yeah, I haven't made as many videos this month. In fact, this is the only video I've made other than the budget review. But when you work 60 hours a week, that's what happens. It's going to be a tough year to get through at least the holiday season with Target, and then we'll see what happens after that. We'll see where the YouTube channel is. I think eventually I'm going to be able to maybe cut down my hours at Target to maybe 10 hours a week and step up my YouTube game while doing Lyft full time, and I think that's probably maybe going to be the best balance. But anyway, guys, this has been a long video. I hope this answers some of the questions. And if I did direct you to this video to answer your question that you posted in the comments, I hope it answers that. If you have any other questions about how things got the way they are, just post them down below in this video. I'll try to answer them. I really am trying. I do read all the comments. It's just with my whole work schedule, I'm not able to respond to a lot of them, or it takes me forever to, but I do read them. So leave me some comments down below. I will be filming the August budget review on September 1st. That's when I have my reservation for the room I need, and I swear to you guys, I am getting that Uber and Lyft video together, and I'm also going to have a video up in September about what I cut out of my budget, because you guys know, at least for this year, I've been really trying to reduce my expenses. So I just want to update you guys on that, kind of tell you how that's going. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching.